Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Sword Art Online Alicization anime review. This one's going to be for episode 41, which is called Prince of Hell. So we got our Vizago Castle's backstory here, at least some of it, because obviously the light novel goes into it in a lot more detail. And the way they presented it here just honestly left out sort of whole kind of plot aspects of his backstory. They really simplified it, which I thought was kind of unfortunate, given that this episode also introduced some elements that of course weren't in the light novel, with the introduction of the Eiji and Yuna fight with Pooh, which obviously those characters didn't even exist when the light novel came out, because Ordinal Scale came out after that. So this is this sort of attempt to bring them into the content that they realistically, I suppose, should play a part in. And I actually liked that section of the episode. It just ended up feeling a little bit like they introduced that new stuff to have a cool fight, and then forgot about this sort of kind of important aspect of Vizago's backstory. But anyway, let's get into this. So what we learn in the anime about his backstory is that we find out that, okay, he lived in America initially. So his father is Japanese, his mother's Hispanic, and he is left with the mother. Obviously, the idea is that the father has another family in Japan, and so the reveal here is that you actually have a half-brother. So they're not doing too well in America, and then his father comes to him with the sort of implication here being that, oh hey Vizago, your older brother has been like struggling with medical problems basically since he was born. The reason I've been supporting you and your mother all this time is basically so that I'll have a replacement kidney for my son that I actually care about. So he sort of threatens him with the idea, if you don't give me your kidney, I will stop supporting you and your mother. So that creates the dynamic here. And the point that they play on here mainly, which wasn't actually touched on that much in the light novel, I think it's one line, but they don't linger on it too much, was this point that, oh, Vizago's half-brother looks surprisingly like Kirito, like Kazuto. And that is meant to inform us as to why he sort of has picked on Kirito so much, and why he's so focused on him even now, after he's found out what state Kirito is in the underworld. The problem here is that the anime leaves out a ton of extra stuff. Now, I believe the way the fights are going to progress after this, we get some little bits of backstory as we go forward, mainly explaining the significance of Pooh's weapon, the kind of meat cleaver thing. That will get, I suppose, explained. We'll see if they go into it or not. But for the most part, like, his backstory is told in one chunk, and this did just leave out a few bits. Mainly this idea that, okay, he had to go to Japan to get the surgery, of course, to get his kidney out. But then his father just immediately just stopped supporting him, and so he was basically left on the streets in Japan, and so he had to basically join a gang, and they trained him to be a hitman. So the significance of it is basically that, oh, Vizago is so into killing, not just because he's sort of sadistic, but because he actually is a hitman. The anime presents it as just like he sees a news report on TV about the SAO incident and just decides like, oh, I want in on that so I can kill Japanese players because I hate Japanese people because my father was Japanese and look at what he did to me. Whereas in the light novel, they present it as, no, the syndicate or gang that he was running with, they were the ones who supplied him with the nerve gear, and it was actually an assassination, a hit, to go into the game to kill one of the players inside the game, so it would be the cleanest kill possible, because people are going to die in SAO. So if you kill this person that we want to put the hit out on cleanly in the game, it's the perfect assassination. But of course he gets, entrenched in the game and does everything that he does. He realizes when he does go in, he can kill all the Japanese players that he wants. But that fundamentally, he purposefully got himself stuck in the game on purpose, because he was part of this, assassination syndicate, basically. And I kind of don't like that they just utterly didn't mention any of that. That would help to connect the idea of like why Vizago is with basically Miller's like paramilitary organization at the start of this. That would really connect the dots together. As it is, it's just like, oh, Vizago is still just an SAO player. But obviously the significant point that they bring up here is that, oh, yeah, this idea, like, I don't think we'd ever really thought about before, but when the SAO incident happened and became news, of course they'd stop selling the nerve gear and they'd make sure no one else can get a copy of the game, because they have to keep the game on to protect the players who are still in there. So of course if someone found a copy of the game and the nerve gear, they could actually dive into the game. That's a very interesting idea, that Vizago actually dived in after the game was already in progress. He was not a player who was there day one, and he made the purposeful choice to go in there on his own and get himself trapped. That I like that point, but I was just a little bit let down by just the lack of detail, I think, in a lot of this, in that when I watched this for the first time, I was kind of like, I know there's more to this backstory because I haven't read the light novel in a while, but there's definitely more than is presented here, and I was kind of like, did they even get the details of what they did present right? And ultimately they did, outside of the idea of like he just sees SAO on the TV and then just goes somewhere to steal a nerve gear to dive in. Like, I think that was overly simplified. Like, I think they tried to overly emphasize the idea of like he wants to kill Japanese players, which I guess adds further reasoning behind what he is doing right now in terms of the plot, with all the different players, the foreign players coming in, why his sort of power, his incarnation power of his soul, it seems to be basically to get people angry against Japanese players, is that is this personal issue for him in his life, so he can, with his soul, influence other people to feel the same way, with only the people who have sort of seen through the ruse really being able to defend against it. And so we get that his power is kind of turning people against each other, which fits what he told us in the last episode about, oh yeah, I leaked the Laughing Coffin plans. Yeah, I was the leader of Laughing Coffin, but I didn't mind seeing them get slaughtered because it would turn other people into killers. So he just appreciates the chaos of a fight, so it makes sense his ability would sort of cause that sort of fighting to happen. So this, I suppose, does bring us to the fight that we actually did get. We got the arrival of Eiji and Yuna. This was what the tease with the SAO server was about, and they started it off this episode with Yui realizing that there's some sort of connection happening. Once Eiji came in, I realized, okay, this is what they're going to do. They're using this fight, this new fight that wasn't in the light novel, as the framing device in the animation for why this backstory is like coming out. In between the blows and the fight, this is where we get the backstory, and it gives us this fight where, you know, Eiji gets to sort of, you know, be a part of the series. He gets to have sort of his revenge in a way against one of the biggest, you know, enemies from SAO. He gets his opportunity to sort of go, you know, incarnation, full soul incarnation mode, where he goes back to his former role as being a member of the Knights of the Blood Oath, like, but with the power that he has gained sort of since then. And then we see the different, you know, forms of Yuna, the sort of, you know, idol type character from Ordinal Scale, and then she does also sort of incarnate soul. We get to see her sort of original form as well. So, you know, it was a really well animated fight, for sure. And obviously the idea is like Eiji can't win this fight because this, you know, as much as he's sort of a noted character to a degree, there's so many other characters who are, it's much more significant to see them fighting Pooh compared to him. So you sort of knew the whole time he is going to be defeated, but it definitely fit what they had set up in Ordinal Scale, and I like that. Okay, here's, you know, Pooh getting a big victory. Here's someone actually, you know, dying, which I thought was kind of important to do. Like, you're showing a lot of the players getting like significantly injured and hurt, and like that everyone's been defeated, but to actually see someone get taken out, I thought was actually something kind of important to show, and that they're all aware of like who he is. He was another SAO survivor, and now here is Pooh, the biggest enemy from that game, dominating everyone once again. So the setup now is, what is he going to do next? Is he going to try and kill Kirito or what? But this is where, like, I don't know if they're just waiting to do it in the next episode or they're just skipping over this bit, but a large part of why Pooh is doing what he's doing, causing everyone to fight each other, is that he's trying to create a situation where he knows the hero of Aincrad, the Black Swordsman, will come out. That's how he thinks he's going to get Kirito back so he can fight him and kill him normally, is by forcing a situation where he knows a hero like Kirito will have to come out. I'm guessing they'll probably play on that in the next episode, but of course, I suppose we're waiting for, at this point, Asuna to step up to the plate here. This is, at this point, it's her fight, with Kirito sort of still on the way to coming back. Asuna is the one left who needs to fight him, and that's the most sort of significant here. Everyone else is like super injured, and while Asuna is obviously suffering from fatigue, her account and just the situation she's in means she's probably the one left most ready to and capable to face off against Vizago, which, you know, makes complete sense. On the other side of the story, we got Yanai was killed here. Rinko basically just drops a wrench down, nearly, you know, absolutely kills Yanai there. But as he steps back, he falls down the shaft, basically, and that's seemingly the end of Yanai. And then they teased the kind of romance connection between Higa and Rinko, which I actually thought was quite good. Of just, you can tell how worried she was for him, and he's like, oh wow, that actually went way better than I thought it would. So he finally makes the connection. The three STLs are connected to Kirito's one, and we're just at the end of the episode waiting to see what the result of that is. They're all trying to get him back, and we end with just this interesting shot of like Kirito in a classroom, and the next episode is called Memories. So this is the significance of this, is that it wouldn't mean that much if Kirito literally just returned from this rather technical thing happening. We just connect three people who know him up to him, and that's it. Kirito is in this state fundamentally because he is being critical of himself as a character. He needs to be able to get past that criticism of himself, forgive himself for what happened. And I suppose just, you know, it's been a while since we really addressed, you know, Kirito's character arc, I suppose, is to really explore what he beat himself up over so much that he put himself into this state. What are his regrets? Why does he think he has failed? Why isn't he active right now? And what are, I suppose, Asuna, Lifa, and Sinon's sort of visions of their memories of him, their version of Kirito that they have in their minds? How do they view Kirito, and how will those iterations of Kirito help the real one remember sort of who he once was? That's the point here, and that's why I really hope they deliver on this really important section for Kirito's character arc, because he's been gone for like who knows how many episodes now. It's been like 15, 16 or something like that. That's a long time for your main character to be out of action, and they really need to get this character development right. It's done very well in the light novel, and I hope they execute it well here. I'm just a little worried just because they had a chance to really deliver with the Pooh backstory, but they only gave us the basics. But I think there's still room to maybe still get into more of the POH stuff as we go forward. But yeah, the other sections of the episode were mainly just getting across that, like, we are building towards this point where everyone is being defeated. Everyone's getting overwhelmed. People are going down. We've already seen a lot of the characters like Sakuya and Alicia sort of go down, as well as Klein. Now we see the sort of goddesses go down. The best reinforcements begin to fail. So Lifa, of course, is, you know, on a controlling the battlefield on her own, taking out, you know, whole battalions of foreign players just on her own with the Terraria account. And I think they showed this actually quite well in terms of it being some of the more brutal and gory kind of fight scenes we've had in the series up to now, of her just noting that like it's almost this curse of this account, that she basically can never, you know, be defeated in game. Like her hit points pretty much like can't hit zero, because she's just always going to regenerate straight back up. But the curse is that she feels all of this. Like they're in the most sort of realistic game, you know, full dive environment that they possibly can be in. There's no you know, pain diminisher going on here. Every hit, she feels it, and that's the only thing sort of holding her back. It was the same with Asuna and the same with Sinon. The only thing that's holding them back is that they are still fundamentally a person deep down. Their soul, their Fluchtlight, only has so much sort of capacity for just anything. So the amount of pain that they're all going through, the damage, even though it's not technically in terms of numbers in the game killing her, it still hurts and affects her. That mentally, that damage all takes its toll. And so just that idea of she constantly gets up to fight again, is hit again, gets up again, and realizes that like Kirito would not go down, so I can't go down either. And then we cut over to Sinon versus Subtilizer, and we see their fight, their you know, bullet of bullets basically here, sniper battle of just them being able to just like snipe each other's shots out of the air. But then the twist being that, oh, Sinon's Hecate only has 7 rounds, whereas his gun has 10. But just as you think she's about to be, you know, defeated with one shot straight through the stomach or something like that, this is where her sort of incarnation power comes out, and that, yeah, she was almost like very quick to like abandon the goddess stuff to bring the GGO stuff in, but then she realizes that no, this is part of the account here, is that she can kind of use the energy around her, and that like she basically, you know, takes the energy of his shot, turns that into the blast, the energy for her blast from her weapon, and she uses the annihilation ray out of her Hecate to deal a lot of damage to Subtilizer. And though she's like injured him very heavily, it doesn't look like it's had any effect on him. Like he's injured, like he's missing an arm, he's burned, but he doesn't act like he's been hurt at all. He just like, oh, Sinon's on the ground after that exchange. He's just going after Alice, and it seems like at this point we end the episode with the idea of like, there's the hope for Kirito kind of coming back. The connection has happened, but is it too late? They have kind of nothing left to give, and that's the way it is. That like even Asuna at this point has sort of been beaten down. She's been leading the troops on the front lines for so long, and now is so worried about Kirito. What is going to be the thing that, you know, finally gets them up and going is seeing some hope in Kirito again, of him actually coming back and, you know, setting up some fights, I suppose, for the end of the arc. But yeah, that's most of what this episode was focused on. It seems like definitely next week we are going to get the return of Kirito, I think. I think they'll tease it right at the end, that like right at the end it'll be like, oh, he's back, but you have to wait until next week to really see him in action. That, to me, is probably the best way to do it, because you've got a couple of fight scenes to get through before Kirito's return based on the light novel, and you obviously have Kirito's sort of character arc of, you know, how he actually returns, that like there's a reason what happened to him happened. He has to get over that, in addition to the, you know, the technical, you know, connecting of all the STLs together to happen. So it's one of those episodes where in general very good, but there were a few little issues, I think mainly just with the lack of going full on the Vizago backstory. I think most fans would have appreciated it if you just devoted a good amount of time to that. I get why they maybe felt that like, oh, we have to cut back to a fight, like we can't focus on like a important backstory so much right now. We have to keep the fighting going to keep the atmosphere up and the pacing up. But no, this is an important character. This is the perfect character to represent the sort of true villain, the lasting villain of SAO. the leader of the guild, the player killing guild, that caused so much strife for everyone who's a part of SEO. This is him right here. Let's cover who he is, why he is the way he is, and what he's about. And we get some of it, but not the full thing. I think it would have meant so much if they just said, he's a hitman, he's an assassin, he kills people in real life, so that's why he's so willing to do it. Otherwise, I just find it so weird that they just didn't mention any of that stuff, and then just were like, oh, he just went to like an abandoned like depot or something like that and found a nerve gear and, you know, logs in. It was just like, okay, that's fine, I guess, but, you know, use what you have. The material covers it. And while the Eiji and Yuna stuff is fine, like, I don't think they're the most amazing characters, but I appreciate incorporating Ordinal Scale in and not just leaving it out there on its own as a sort of watch it if you want, but you don't have to type thing. But, you know, solid episode. But yeah, I think the really, really big stuff is coming up, and that's what I'm really, really excited for. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.